I've had two careers. The first was as a school teacher, and the second was as a realtor. And a frustrating thing about both of those careers is that there's a percentage of the population who believe that anybody can do either of those jobs. They think, give me the textbook, I can go in the classroom and teach those kids, or, hey, my Uncle Joe, he sold his house without a realtor, I can do that too. And it reminds me that there's a lot of things in life that are easy to learn how to do, but hard to learn how to do well. I actually had somebody tell me recently, though they had just found the house they wanted to buy, they said, I don't need you to be my buyer's agent because buyer's agents don't do anything. Which also reminded me of times when somebody who I'd been advising as they prepared to list their house for sale call me up and say, hey, turns out I don't need you. I found a buyer. And that points out the great misunderstanding a lot of people have about what realtors do, because I'm primarily not a salesperson. I'm usually not trying to convince people of things or wrestle them into my way of thinking. I'm a project manager, and my project is to get my client from the purchase agreement to the closing table. And that can be a 30-day journey, usually about a month. And that job begins either when I sit down to write a purchase agreement for a buyer, or when I'm representing a seller and we receive a purchase agreement from another agent. That 30-day period of time is when I save my clients an enormous amount of money, or I save them from being sued and have to go to small claims court, or worse yet. That's the meat of the process, because I'm dealing with a lender and I have to know the terms and the nature of the buyer's loan, whether I'm representing the seller or the buyer. If I'm representing the seller, I have to know how to negotiate with that buyer based on the kind of loan that they have. I have to deal with the home inspector and the things that he might find wrong with the house. And I have to be prepared to object when a home inspector makes mistakes, which they do all the time. I have to be ready to deal with an appraiser. I know how to interact with an appraiser before they ever get to the house to help ensure that the home actually appraises for what the buyer agreed to pay for it. And I've had transactions in the last year held up by findings from a surveyor or from the title company. And you have to know how to address those issues and keep everyone moving toward closing. So next time you hear somebody say, I don't need a realtor because I found a buyer for my house, or I don't need a realtor because I found the house, you'll know that they are 180 degrees away from reality, because that is the very moment when they need a realtor the most.